recording, feel free to make that happen now. Lovely.
Huh?
So thank you all. So I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that you're here tonight and for your involvement in our community advisory networks in Ontario and in Saskatchewan. Just a few simple statistics for you, just to give you an idea what you were part of. In 2025, there were 18 meetings in total connected to the community advisory networks across all of our districts. That did include our launch meeting last January. And there were more than 150 people involved in all of those meetings over the course of the year. A key highlight in 2025 in all of your discussions was looking ahead to this year's strategic plan that we will share about in a little bit. So we have an update for you for about that, and we're quite excited about it. And the networks, this network was many points of contact where Caris, where we were able to connect with people and their families and others in our community. So across Caris, just again, um, some of you might have experienced these, and just, wave or give me a thumbs up if I mention something that you were involved with last year. Across the two provinces, there were 11 Belongathon events. So if you were there, just we can make the Zoom screen go a little bit wacky as it interprets our thumbs up. There were 8 celebrations across the provinces for International Day of Persons with Disabilities on or around December 3rd. There were 9 Christmas events, including a candlelight service in some communities and parties. There were 8 picnics across both provinces last year. And there were at least 4 barbecues that we counted. And so these are all some of the different ways that we have been connecting with our community more broadly. Uh, the Community Advisory Network, of course, is more of a formal meeting and connection, but it's still part of that broad point of connection that we have. In addition, there were other events such as a movie in the park. There was a polar plunge. Um, Stefan smiles because he led that. There's, I think, a couple of those happening this coming year. There were Canada Day parties, a fishing derby, a harvest fair, connection meetings. We celebrated our 60-year anniversary in 2025, and that was interspersed throughout so many of those events. At our annual community meetings, in the fall, Minister Jensen, the minister in charge of the Ministry of Community, sorry, Heather, the Ministry of Social Services. The Ontario terms just roll off my tongue sometime. The Minister Jensen of MSS out in Saskatchewan attended and brought greetings at our ACM. In Ontario, Minister Parsa from the Ministry of Community and Children and Social Services attended our Humber Grad that happened in the Toronto community. So we've been really enjoying lots of points of connection this year, and this community advisory network was a key one for all of those. So that said, we have a poll question. This is in part us practicing polls and us getting an idea about who you gave me the thumbs up, but you can answer which of the 2025 activities that we'll list here were the most meaningful in your community. And you can choose as many as 3, but the poll is there. Take a moment and um, for those of us that are hosts, we might not be able to see the poll. We might only be able to see the replies. So I can see. In a moment, we'll close it. But so far, the Belongathon is the highest, and Eugene says, "Hooray!" He's our organizational champion for Belongathon. Um, Belongathon's still the highest. A lot of people participating in the annual community meetings and family camp and the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Luann, you can go ahead and just close the poll so we get our final numbers. So as it relates to the activities that were most meaningful, 71% of you said that the Belongathon was that. So thank you very much for that information. Um, so for me, just of all these events, a highlight of all of them, Belongathon, yes. The Humber Grad was a delight, was a highlight for me, in part because I live in that community in the Toronto area, and my daughter might very well go to Humber next year, and so it was an opportunity for me to be able to scout it out and see what it might look like for her in the programs too. Um, but that was a highlight for me. I had asked the executive directors if they would share come up with a highlight from their participation with you all in the community advisory networks last year. And Patty and James said, "Yeah, we'll share." And they've shared. They have an example to share of something really great about it. So, Patty, let's go to you first, and you can introduce yourself for the people that don't know you, and then
Sure.
share your testimony, as it were.
Got my testimony. Thanks, Dwayne. My name is Patty Vlar, and I have the privilege of serving with Karis as the executive director in our what we call our West District, but that encompasses the communities of Hamilton and Niagara, Waterloo and Wellington, and Halton and Peel, so the west side of Lake Ontario. Um, when when we were meeting with our group, we ran into a situation. I mean, we support people just like you and I, we all age. And as people age, their mobility changes. And mobility then sometimes means that people need assistance to evacuate. And so we were running into some challenges in what we needed to meet our fire code obligations. And so, as we do, and as we have done for many years, we create plans. And so we presented plans to families. And it got a little bit of resistance. I'm going to say that was okay because plans don't always meet everybody's needs. And we're like, okay, are they not quite understanding what our dilemma is? Anyways, we brought that situation to the Community Advisory Network. And it was like, how do we deal with this? How do we manage in the tension of meeting our obligations and trying to engage families when we had a plan that would work? And it was like, well, rather than tell it, so the suggestion came back, which was rather than tell us the plan, why don't you tell us the dilemma? So engage us earlier in the conversation, explain it, invite us into problem solving as family members that are involved in wherever the challenge is. And then, maybe even if we don't have solutions, at least we feel respected, we feel heard, we feel engaged in the conversation, and then together we can make a plan. So we changed our approach as a result of that advice. And so in our next community, when we were moving houses, we invited families in and it made a difference. The conversations back were like, oh, that's tough. Wow, let me think about that. Or keep me informed, right? But it made an absolute difference in how we approach our engagement with families when we have tough situations ahead of us. So like, it's a co-design approach, and it came from a good conversation. And that's it, Dwayne.
It's awesome. Thanks so much, Patty, for sharing that. James, just before I come to you, I forgot to mention the chat is open. So if people have a comment or a question that they want to make there as well, please feel free. And I've got a couple of us that are monitoring it so we don't miss it. Um, it's a great example of the benefit of this network, Patty. So thank you so much for sharing. James, introduce yourself as well as you share yours.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, everybody. James Palmer, and I have the privilege of serving as the executive director in Karis North District. So, yeah, up here in the deep snow. Although we didn't get as much as some of our friends down south. We got the cold, but it was kind of like clear and sunny. So, we're not mad about that. Yeah, so I have an awesome story, just a brief one, also about some of the value that the community advisory networks brought to us here in the north. Just back in maybe the summer, the fall, like I guess late summer, early fall, we had a conversation around recruitment challenges. And those who are familiar with Caris kind of service footprint in the north, we are operating in a number of very small communities. And sometimes that can be difficult from a recruitment perspective, getting people to fill our staff roles and do the kind of hands and feet work of our mission. And specifically, we're having trouble in Huntsville filling some staffing positions. So, and that put a lot of pressure on one of our teams here and the service that we were running. And we brought this challenge to the Community Advisory Network, brought in our recruitment person and kind of to frame the issue and what we've tried to date, and just to say, hey, some of the folks on our advisory network are from the Muskokas. Others just have great perspective on things that have worked in the past and how to maybe attract people to those kinds of roles. And yeah, they were able to kind of reset our thinking on how we might go about recruitment in that area. So we had been focused a lot on social media marketing and kind of online modes like Indeed for posting jobs. And folks were saying, we've had a lot of success in promoting things kind of the old-fashioned way, with paper, tearaway notices in a grocery store, let's say, or even by just word of mouth and other kind of local marketing channels. So we were able to implement a few of those strategies, and a couple months later, all those positions were filled. So, and we do a lot of checking back in with candidates, right, to just see kind of how did you hear about Karis, and two of those folks had heard about it through those kind of more organic channels. So yeah, that was really, really cool. And to see, people joining our ranks and our, the mission and the work that we do through that, yeah, great advice that we received from the advisory network was really, we were really grateful for that. So yeah, that's what we're excited about in the North, in these last months.
It's awesome. James, thank you so much. Um, it's fun as you're presenting to see people's with all the digital hands and hearts and stuff go up the screen. So please feel free to use that. I'm sure it's quite encouraging to whoever is speaking to be able to see that kind of reaction in real time. Um, you guys talked about there were so many things that was talked about at the at your various meetings across the organization last year, but I want to highlight two more. So James and Patty, thank you for sharing those two examples. And so I'm going to invite Michelle and Laura in just a moment in that order to share. Michelle's going to share an update about the Canada Disability Benefit and I'll let her share that update. And then Laura around recruitment and retention. Those were two. The Canada Disability Benefit was a developing topic, and recruitment and retention was certainly an important topic throughout the year, even as per James's illustration. Michelle, I'll pass it to you, and please introduce yourself and then share your update.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Norton. I serve as the Director of Operations, and I work out of our office in Waterloo. And so, yes, we were really excited that in July, the Canada Disability Benefit became available to eligible adults who experience disabilities. And so at that time, we really wanted to make sure that we got information out to people that use our services and their families. And so we made sure that we circulated written correspondence. We also hosted a webinar just in efforts to get some information out to people. And a section of our external website under media and resources, and then underneath that community resources, it actually has a recording of this webinar along with some other information around the Canada Disability Benefit for anybody that wants to reference that at some point. So far, some of the reports that we've heard have indicated that the Canada Disability Benefit has been fairly easy for people to apply for. However, one of the pieces that's been a bit more challenging has been the disability tax credit. And the disability tax credit, for those that don't know, is a necessary first step before you can apply for the Canada Disability Benefit. Specifically, some of the things that we've heard from people are that the cost to have the disability tax credit forms completed by a medical practitioner, that's a barrier. The cost is a barrier because those costs are not covered by provincial funding such as ODSP or SAID in Saskatchewan. The second piece around this as well that's been a bit of a barrier is who can actually sign the disability tax credit application. So it must actually be signed by the person who has the disability or their legal representative. And the definition of legal representative is actually quite limiting, and many family members may not meet this definition. So these are two areas that would benefit from some continued advocacy, and we are considering that both organizationally, and we've also raised that with our Voices Matter Council for them to consider in their advocacy efforts as well. The final piece just around this is that the disability tax credit's often denied, particularly if there's not sufficient evidence to show the medical components around a person's disability. And this can often be a matter of how the paperwork is completed. And so we encourage those who have been denied the disability tax credit to go through the appeal process, because often people are successful once they've gone through the appeal process, once they add a little bit further information. Right now, organizationally, we are working just to, as it's kind of been 6 months since it's been in place, we're working to gather some data as to the number of people that use our services and whether they are receiving these two benefits. And we're going to be working with our direct support teams in the coming weeks and months just to make sure that we have that data captured accurately so we can have a full picture organizationally as to kind of where we're sitting with that. So that's all for me. Thanks, Dwayne.
Michelle, that's awesome. Stefan, thank you for putting the link in the chat that Michelle mentioned. So that's great. People, if you open your chat, you can see the link that Michelle mentioned from our website. But let me pause. So we've covered a bit of ground. So let me pause before I go to Laura. And perhaps there's a comment or question that somebody might have, just particularly about what Michelle shared. And you can ask it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask here. And it's okay if there's no questions. Good. Okay. Thank you. If one comes to mind, please feel free to throw it in the chat. I'm mindful that it was a big update. So thank you. One of the other big things from last year, of course, and ongoing is recruitment retention. I'm grateful that Laura Watson has joined us to share a brief update for you all, just as it relates to the cumulative impact of the work that we've been doing together. So Laura, when you introduce yourself, please, and then you can share. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Watson, and I serve as the Director of Recruitment and Retention at Caris. And as James pointed out, one of the important pieces of work that we do is to keep track of and adjust our approaches to recruitment as the pool of candidates changes on an ongoing basis. Sometimes that means being more organic, sometimes that means being more structured. So I'm going to share a challenge that's developed over the last couple of years and talk a little bit about what Caris is doing. Over the last 4 years, Caris has become increasingly reliant on temporary foreign workers. These are people who are new to Canada and they've come and they've joined our Caris teams. These employees typically fall into two different categories. They're people who have study permits, and while they're in school, they're able to work up to 24 hours a week, and they're serving typically in casual positions. Or they are people who have work permits, which allow them to work in Canada, typically on a postgraduate work permit for usually 2 to 3 years. So I want to give you a little bit of stats to tell you how much this has become a focus in the last year, particularly, and that really this wasn't really on our radar even 3-4 years ago. We know some stats because in COVID, the government had an initiative to attract workers to our healthcare and caring professions. So in 2021, we know that there were less than 2% of Caris's workforce who were working with a study or work permit. And that quickly changed by 2023, 2 years later, as people started to request support for immigration. We started to keep track more regularly, and we knew that number increased to 5% of our workforce. As of today, we have 432 people who are working on study or work permits, which represents a 13% part of our workforce. It is a growing daily number, and retaining these valued employees has become a huge priority. Employees who have work permits typically seek permanent residency in Canada. And in recent years, employees moved from study permits to postgraduate work permits to permanent residency with little disruption to their employment with Caris. But that's no longer true. The Canadian government's intentional reduction in the number of temporary and permanent residents and the targets that have been set for 2026 and future years means that 3 things. There are fewer students to fill casual positions. There are fewer temporary foreign workers to fill staff vacancies for part-time and full-time positions. And there are fewer new permanent residents who can make long-term career with Caris, who potentially have already worked for us for several years. It's a new and very challenging circumstance for Caris to place employees on unpaid leaves or even end their employment if they've not been able to maintain their eligibility to work in Canada. Broader immigration practices are impacting both our recruitment and our retention of new employees. Caris has adapted, and we continue to monitor and learn about immigration processes to support current employees to remain in Canada and to be retained as employees on our team. Employees are currently supported by Caris through 3 different immigration streams. We are supporting, and this is where we began our journey, supporting employees through express entry processes. About 2 years ago, we began supporting people through the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, specifically supporting international students. And more recently, we've begun to support employees in the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program, the RCIP program, in communities such as Sudbury, North Bay, and Moose Jaw. And these have been very, very successful in those particular programs in retaining some of our staff. Immigration processes are incredibly complex, they're ever changing, and very costly to our employees. And this large group of 432 employees are valued. Caris will continue to focus our resources to support people who have work and study permits. It is part of our strategic planning to continue to evolve and develop in this area. And our hope is that we can continue to serve others, that these people can continue to serve others and share their gifts at Caris.
Thank you so much, Laura. Can I bother you if somebody has a question? I'm mindful to just put you on the spot for that to ask you. Just if there's a comment or question for Laura, we can take a moment, chat, or just here in the group. I congratulate. Oh, go ahead, Stefan.
Laura, we sometimes hear from employees who reach out to us to support a program that we're not able to participate in. I think LMIA programs or waivers or some such. Are you able to speak to the reality that we can't participate in every sponsorship program and just some of the parameters that we have around that?
Absolutely. I can talk on this for hours, so I will try to sum it up in a sentence or two. But there are dozens and dozens of immigration streams, some of which are more and some of which are less effective as means of permanent residence, to gain permanent residence in Canada. To learn all of those different streams, to be in compliance with the legislation for all those streams is very, very demanding. We hope to possibly expand. One of the challenges is that a lot of these streams require financial investment on part of the person or company that are sponsoring. Some that don't have a financial investment have a different level of commitment. All of our employees on work permits have open work permits, which mean they can work for us or someone else. And if we, some of the programs that we aren't participating would result in an employee having a closed work permit with us, which ties that person specifically to our organization, and their immigration status is dependent on our employment with them. So you can begin to understand the challenges there. If there's discipline problems or termination, we literally could be responsible for ending up having someone leave the country because of our lack of continued support. So there's lots of research that has to go into this. And honestly, over the last year, because we've gone from 100 people to 432 people in a really short period of time, we've had to build a number of systems and processes on how to track, how to feed information back to supervisors on expiry date, how to validate the documentation that we're receiving, and all of those processes. So we've built the machine as we've gone over the last year. We will continue to explore other means, but there are a lot of different limitations and some resource challenges in that. This is a new demand within our human resource department, and we hope to assign some new funding to it because this is an area that is, as 13% of our workforce, this is an area that requires some very dedicated support. So,
thank you, Laura. And Laura, sorry, Dave is the name on the screen, but hi, Laura. It's nice to see you.
Sorry, my quick question, and I don't have the annual report in front of me, but we're talking about 432 people that are new immigrants. How many staff does Caris have? What's the ballpark number there?
Sure, I'm a stats person. So our December 31st employee count was 3,336 people. So we just crossed that 13% mark today.
I knew that it took a lot of people to make the machine roll.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura. And thanks, Laura. Both two Lauras on screen. For anyone that's interested, I'm about to say a joke just to be clear. For anyone that's interested in learning more after this meeting, Laura Watson will stay on for 14 hours and give you an update. Obviously, we're not doing that. Laura, thank you for all the work that you've been doing and helping us with that and for being here tonight to share this update. It's a significant point of focus for us as an organization. So, okay, then. Thank you for these reports. This is us reflecting on last year. And so now I want to turn and let's look at next year. And in a moment, I'm going to invite Eugene and Naima. I think Naima might be sharing, but Eugene will share a moment. But before we do, our second poll question. How satisfied are you with the structure of the Community Advisory Network meetings? And as you answer this, we're mindful we've been doing this now properly, I say for a year. And so we want you to answer. And so this will help us learn. The first person that answered said needs improvement. So we would love to hear some of those feedback later. So mostly satisfied is we're hovering there. So that's helpful. Loanne, you can just check the number of people that have responded, and then if we're close to the total, we can stop it and you can end the poll. Thank you for that. It's encouraging for me to see mostly satisfied, given the fact that we launched for the first time in some communities and refreshed in others the community advisory network structure in 2025. And so that's that it's good to hear that generally it's going well. So as we get together in our small groups, perhaps, and as you go into your local community advisory network meetings in the months ahead, please feel free to share the highlights of what you think, how we could make it better, and that'll help us to improve it for everybody across the organization. So thank you for that. Now let's switch our view from looking back and reflecting on last year to looking ahead. And Eugene, why don't you introduce yourself and perhaps introduce Naima, or Naima can introduce herself and take us into our strategic plan that we have developed for the next 3 years. Eugene, respect.
By all means. And I will switch my view because I can't see myself big and not see the rest of you. Seeing you is much more important than seeing myself on my own screen. So I don't know if people know this, but in the top right of your screen, there's this area icon that says view, and you can put it back to gallery so that you can see all of us if you choose that. And otherwise you'll see me on your screen. Thank you for having us this evening as a part of the kickoff of the Community Advisory Network for the year to come. Fantastic to see everybody. I am Eugene Versteeg, and I serve at Caris as the Senior Vice President. I've been in this organization most of my career, and so this has just been a fantastic career for me in coming alongside and supporting people with disabilities. I've served in a variety of different ways. And one of the exciting things that I get to do is navigate and listen to many, many different people to think about what are the things that are important for people with disabilities in our communities, what are the things that are important for our staff, what are the things that are important for our church communities and our broad faith community, and how might Caris respond to some of those things. And that's a bit of an introduction to the work that we do in strategic planning. And so we intentionally listen so that we can think about what are the things that we should prioritize broadly. And last year, we took a year to really invest in listening and discerning and praying and considering what do we prioritize. And the big part of my job tonight, I think, is reminding you of Naima and the work that Naima has done over this last year. You may have met Naima because she joined many, if not all, of these community advisory networks. And so if you were at the meeting where Naima spent some time listening, some of the feedback that I received from people who watched Naima in action was that they were impressed. And so I hope this was your experience if you were there, by her ability to listen to the conversations that were happening, facilitate some of those conversations, take notes during those conversations, and then report back some of the things that she had heard. And people said, "Oh my goodness, like how did you hear with such clarity and be able to bring back to us the clarity of the things that you heard in such a short period of time?" And so we're going to walk you through some of the work that we've done as an organization to listen, and then we're going to share with you the result of that work, which is our strategic plan. And I am thrilled to say that early in November, our board took a look at our first draft of the strategic plan, and just last night, we were able to affirm the strategic plan for the coming years with the board. Many of you might have received an email from Janet Noel Annable, who is our Chief Executive Officer today, that had a couple of links in it. It talked about the theme that we have for the year, and it shared a link that brought you to our website where the strategic plan now is hosted. And so after Naima walks through this, we'll drop those links into the chat so that people can see those. And there's two really cool ways that we describe the strategic plan. One is in a placemat kind of version that is a one-pager that provides a lot of the information in one kind of solid page. It's a bit of a call to action. Why is it that this work is so important to us? And what is the work that we're prioritizing? We'll talk a bit about that when we sum up as well afterwards. But Naima is our manager of strategic initiatives, and she and her team, David Nickerson was one, and others, spent some time listening around the organization where people were meeting, and we had facilitated conversations. We'll talk more about that over the last year. And so Naima, if I can turn it to you, and Naima will share her screen, which shares some slides that will help us walk through and keep us all kind of on the same page as we walk through what it is that we've done over this last year. So to you, Naima.
Thank you, Eugene, and thank you for the encouraging remarks before my presentation. Really appreciate it. And good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here. Very happy to see some familiar faces, as Eugene had said. When I attended the Community Advisory Networks, it was a real pleasure just to listen and learn and to really sort of think together on what would be really important for us as an organization to implement in the years to come. And so, as Eugene has mentioned, I will be walking us through some of that journey that we've been on and how we got to where we are and the ways in which we will continue to engage with community advisory networks with you to continue to co-design some of the work that we're going to be doing in the coming year and in the years to come as well. And so with that, as Eugene had shared, this is that map of that co-design journey that we started in 2025, January, meeting people where they were at. And so it's been a pleasure just visiting communities, meeting people, and just listening to all the different perspectives and what matters to people as they connect with each other, as they connect, as their loved ones connect with staff, and as their loved one connects with other people and services. And it was just a blessing to be a part of all the sharing that was done and all these sort of concerns that were expressed so that we could really hear from people's heart what mattered most to them. And so you would recall in the early part of 2025, we went and met with people where they were at. And that was our touch point with the community advisory networks, where we met with several of the community advisory networks to gain input into our strategic planning process as well as the priorities that we would be defining. And I will acknowledge we were not able to get input from all the community advisory networks because some of the meetings ended up being in September or later part of the year, but we were able to connect and still really build that understanding and share how we were approaching building up the plan and really get their thoughts and insights on the process as well. And you would recall after that, we hosted our 10 Caris Connected Everybody Engages sessions, which were in community, where we invited people in services as well as their families and staff to really come together and look at everything we had heard in the early part of the year and help us think through, again, what mattered most and what we should prioritize moving forward. And some of the feedback we got during those sessions was overwhelmingly positive in that it was a space to really express oneself and for us to listen, and for us to really think deeply about the things that are important to people. As part of our sessions, we also had two of our folks from the Our Voices Matter Council who worked on a co-research project with a team from our Practice and Research Initiatives department to really understand what were the experiences of people who attended and participated in the 10 sessions. And I think one of the most rewarding experiences we saw was when self-advocates were co-hosts with our executive directors at each of these 10 sessions, and several self-advocates came back to us, to my team, and said that it was a very positive experience and that they really wanted to do it again. And so we are being very intentional with continuing to bring those leadership opportunities for self-advocates as we engage and continue this co-design journey. And along the way, after our 10 sessions, of course, we met with our leadership teams to really look at everything we had heard and start to frame it and position it into areas of work and priorities and what we would be doing moving forward. And a sort of first draft of that organization of our work, we shared back with communities in September. And you would recall we sent out an email. We sort of connected back with a few communities just to say that this is where we're heading. What are your thoughts? And we did get quite a lot of feedback from different groups, several saying that the work was resonating, and for others, there were still things that weren't as clear or things that were missing. And we were very intentional with incorporating that as well into the building of the plan. And now we're continuing that journey through this joint community advisory meeting, and there's a few other things which I will also share in the next few slides. But all the input that we got across communities from all the different people that we connected with sort of landed us in this space of the three priorities that we have sort of put together collectively as the priorities for our work moving forward. And so you will see here, we have highlighted those three priorities as our people, focusing on our teams to provide great supports to people, really investing in our services so that we can deliver high quality person-directed services that respond to the needs and choices of people. And then lastly, really investing in our partners so that we can continue to deepen our relationship with partners and communities to influence perspectives and government policy so that we can foster belonging for people. And I don't know, Eugene, if you want to add something to the priorities before I move on to the next slide. Okay, I see not. But these are our three main priorities. And what I really wanted to spend some time doing was sort of take us back to some of the conversations we had at the community advisory networks. So here you will see where I say your input. That is what we heard at the community advisory networks that I was a part of, and how that really shaped the three priorities that we have in front of us. I have a few of my notes from the community advisory meetings, and I recall in Central, when we were there, we heard how important it was to increase the communication with staff and make it easier for families and for their loved ones to be able to find information quickly and get information to people quickly. And so those were some of the things that were really important to the Community Advisory Network in Central. In East, we heard also a very strong emphasis on communications and standardizing those communication, finding a way to share stories so people could connect more and continue to invest in relationships. In the West Community Advisory Network, we heard how important it was for us to continue to train staff and support staff so that they can support people even better and better. And communications, again, was a very important piece, as well as housing, accessible housing and affordable housing. And lastly, in my notes, I see here in Central East, we heard how important it was for people to feel connected to their communities and for really for us as an organization to continue to engage with our Voices Matter Council in the work we do, whether that's advocacy or even as we hosted our CARES Connected session, how can we continue to bring people supported in those leadership positions so that they can also exercise their gifts with us and really share those gifts with us. And so you will see all those sort of key important points that you had shared with us are really translating into three of those priorities around how do we equip, support, and invest our staff? How do we continue to sort of enhance our services and increase the quality in those services? And how do we continue to deepen those relationships? And this is at a very high level, the three priorities. And as Eugene mentioned, if you do get a chance to go into the plan, you will see we have laid out what does each of these priority mean for us as an organization? What is our intent? What do we hope to accomplish? What is the impact we want to see? And what are the different things we want to do within these priorities to help us progress towards a place of belonging for everybody? And so with that, I just wanted to kind of share briefly that we are intending to continue that co-design journey with everybody. And so we're starting with just sharing back the strategic plan and how it's built and sort of help make those connections and make that meaning of where the input really shaped what's in the plan. And we are really eager to hear your thoughts on how we can continue to share back with communities, what we should be mindful of as we're sharing, how we can sort of make it even more meaningful. And after that, we're also going to be hosting an Everybody Engages webinar in March, where we will be inviting everybody and sort of continuing to speak through some of the work that we have done and also what we're planning in the months to come. And lastly, I just wanted to kind of highlight that it is our intention to continue to connect with the community advisory networks for the plan that we're building for 2026. So the work we have mapped out ahead of us for the coming year will include a number of different projects and a number of different key pieces of work. Some of the ones that I've highlighted here are where we will be connecting back with community advisory networks, such as on the work that we'll be doing on service agreements, the CARIS support app. We are going to be doing work around advocacy and government relations and also deepening connections with families. And so we will be coming back really intentionally to connect and build your input into these plans and the outcomes we hope to achieve from this work. And with that, Eugene, I'll pass it back to you if there was anything you wanted to add. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know during the breakout time, we're going to have a bit of a chance to take a look at some of the priorities and think about what are those priorities that resonate well with you. I have put in the chat there 2 links. One takes you directly to the slightly longer version of the strategic plan that highlights the priorities of our people, our services, and our partners. And then the second link that I put there really brings you to that one pager. We call it a placemat. And on that, it just kind of reminds you, where do we come from as CARIS? What do we believe in? What is our foundation? What are our values and our vision and our mission? And then it walks through a little bit of those 3 priorities again. And just to, maybe if you open that one, or if you're able to, given the technology that we have, but our people is to focus on our teams, to provide great supports to people. Employees, and we want to make sure that employees feel equipped, are supported, are connected, and then that results in improved service quality and a workplace people choose to grow in. And so even that Laura was talking a little bit about trying to maintain those valuable employees that we have attracted to the organization, even through the immigration work that we've done, that makes them feel like, here's where you belong, and we're going to work hard to help you to feel that way. And there's a whole number of initiatives that we're doing that help employees to really feel well connected to the organization, to feel well about the work that they're doing, to be able to thrive and to feel welcomed here, so that they can turn and support people well. The second priority around our services is to deliver high quality, person-directed services that respond to the needs and choices of people. And so that's one of those ways, continuing in that journey of co-designing, is really modeling and showcasing what is person-directed services. When do we listen well, encourage the voice of a person, and then help to craft services that are co-designed, that are put together in a way that makes sense for us as an organization, and really importantly, makes sense for the person that's using our services as well. And then that third priority of our partners. And that one is to deepen our relationships with our partners, communities, churches, to foster communities where everybody belongs. It says here, CARIS advocates for better wages, social policy, and continued investment for services for people. And so we really are working hard to put together or to continue in our government relations advocacy. And it says there for great resources that are needed for CARES Disability Services to attract great employees and to be able to provide high quality services, to adjust and in some cases change social policy whereby people are welcomed across different services as full citizens within our communities across Ontario and Saskatchewan. There's times where people find it difficult to be able to access some services. And so those are some of the things that we need to be advocating for with government, with different ministries, and with our municipalities as well. And so as we go into the breakout rooms later, the small groups can talk further about some of those things. But I do encourage you, take a look at the strategic plan that is on the website, download it, consider to review it in depth. Take a look at the placemat that provides you with a brief overview of some of the things that are really important to there. And then on the website is an invitation for you to click that link and join us again on, I'm remembering off the top of my head, March 10. Great, got it right.
Yes.
Another webinar where we will talk about some of these same things that are important for us. And I know that this is an advisory network, and so you might help us to think even about what are some really great ways, and even if you drop these in the chat or you think about these when we break into groups later, what are some things that you believe that we should do that would help us to share with others some of the work that we intend to do? So the first part is sharing the work that we intend to do so that we can attract people and we can have a call to action to attract people to doing that work with us. But our first steps are really is to create a community of people that are well aware of the work that we have heard that we should be doing together as an organization.
Eugene, Naima, thank you so much for that. Yeah, and what we'll do to make it easy for you all is we'll send an email afterwards, not tonight, and we'll include these links that are in the chat. We'll also include a link to the registration for the March 10th event. For this meeting, we forwarded you a link. For the March 10th webinar, you'll need to register. And so we'll equip you with that in an email after we get the recording sorted and everything here. So that way it's easy for your reference. That's awesome. So now we're going to go to the breakout rooms. Now, before we hit, let me give you some instructions about it. At the beginning, I mentioned we've assigned the executive director. So there's going to be 7 rooms, and each executive director will lead one of the rooms. You won't necessarily be with the executive director and team that you're typically part of. So other than the host or the group lead discusser and the note taker, everybody else is random. So you might meet some new people, and that'll be fun if that's fun for you. If not, the EDs are great, and they will help you make it fun. But yeah, and there's 4 questions. The executive directors have these questions, so you don't need to remember them in this moment, but I'll share them with you now. We would like you to take, in the 12 minutes that we'll give you in the group, so EDs, just pay attention to that 12 minutes, 4 questions. First one, what are the things you appreciated about your community advisory network meetings over the last year? So we're looking for some feedback there, and that'll help us to be able to make sure we do more of the same in that regard. The second question is, what would make community advisory meetings better for you as a member? And so that's where we look to help do some improvement to some matters. The third question is specific to the strategic plan work that Naima and Eugene just spoke about. Which of the 2026 strategic priorities resonate with you and why? Our people, our services, our partners. Which areas do you most actively want to advise on in 2026? So that's the fourth question. So the 4 questions about improvement, what's good and what needs to be improved around the community advisory network, resonation as it relates to the strategic priorities, and then which areas would you most like to advise on as it relates to those areas. So 2 questions about the network work, 2 questions about the strategic plan. Thank you in advance to the note takers. You get to be part of the conversation as well. You just get to temper that with grabbing a few notes. And then when we come back from the when we come back from the breakout rooms, I will invite two or three of the executive directors to share four. I'll invite four of you to share a highlight of one of those questions each. Okay. So then people are taking notes, so we'll be able to take that away. But just share it with the group, a thing that stood out as it relates to one. So if you would come and be ready to speak to any one of those, please, executive directors. Sal and Loanne, have I captured all the instructions for the breakout rooms? I think I have. Right? Thank you for the nod, Sal. Appreciate that. Okay, so remember, designated lead and note taker, random everybody else. I'll be in one of the groups with you, and then we'll come back to the large group in 12 minutes. Okay, Sal, the power is yours. We're not all back just yet. We're making our way there. If your group was like mine, you were mid-question. I didn't, how many minutes should you have for a breakout group? I don't know. We can put that on a survey question for later. I didn't want it to be too long and people to be wondering, oh gee, when are they going to bring us back? And I didn't want it to be too short. So thank you. I'm going to choose that you are being gracious about the time that you were cut off about. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody for participating in that regard. Our note takers will help us make sure that we did get that feedback. So note takers, Sal had given you some instructions about making sure it was shared back with her. So please do that. Um, I so I want to take a moment now, and I didn't put anybody on the spot. I didn't name anybody to do this. So EDs, I'll look for you to volunteer, and then I'll call on one if rather than wait for too long. But could somebody share an example of what was shared in their group as it relates to the first question? What was a thing or things that people appreciated about their community advisory networks over the past year? Go ahead, Dave.
There we go. I think we're good
Yep.
now. Yeah, if first of all, that time went by really, really quick. We were having a great chat. Didn't really get too far into the strategic plan. Definitely a huge theme about just different perspectives that come to the table in terms of what's appreciated. And I won't take a ton of time. One of the things that jumped out, one comment that was made was an opportunity to be vulnerable. And I think that was just a comment on the idea that, we can deal with tough stuff, with things that cause us grief or tension, and we can talk honestly about those things, and just having the perspective of people that aren't in our day-to-day whirlwind, and getting someone else's view, especially those with lived experience and with families, is just incredibly valuable. I think that's a main theme that I heard.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Before I go to question two and look for somebody, Dave, just to your point, after we do an example of each of the four questions, I will open it up for one or two people if there's something that you didn't get time to share in the breakout rooms to share here. So if there's somebody that is interested in doing that, we'll take an extra moment and do that. Could somebody share an example? What one or two things to help make community advisory meetings better for you as a member? Stefan, you're super eager to share, so go ahead.
I wanted to get in now before we got to the question that we didn't get to.
Yeah.
So one feedback, and it's tied a bit to question three, but it came up in question two, which was the even better if having a limited focus. And we talked in our group, we referenced that there are 3 priorities next year. That's a good number. But having focusing in on one thing would be a better approach than trying to cover everything. And so I think that's something we've intentionally done in the strategic plan. So it's great to hear it come out as an even better if for the community advisory network.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stefan, for sharing that. Thanks to your group for doing that. Okay, so for those of you that got to question 3, which of the 3 priorities for our strategic plan resonate with you and why? James?
Yeah, so our group shared just that the idea of our partners was really resonant, specifically as it relates to just the work that Our Voices Matter does and connecting the dots between our services and government advocacy work and really adding that lived experience voice to make things better. So we're excited about speaking into that a little bit more in the coming year.
Mhm. Thanks, James. Hillary, you're going to speak to three as well?
Sure. And first, I
Yeah.
need to apologize. My computer decided it was time to request a systems update. So that was fun as we were trying to engage in conversation. So apologies there. We just got into this question three, but lots of enthusiasm around people, our people, and focusing on the experiences, the equipping and support of our incredible staff, and really, this was shared from somebody who supports our employees in his work, but just incredible enthusiasm around how do we really focus in on the experience of staff, growing their capacity. And solidifying their experience and what that looks like in terms of a consistent experience across communities. Lots of excitement there, and I think we could have kept talking on the other themes for sure. We just dipped our toe into that piece of things. Thanks.
Thanks, Hillary. Did any group get to question four? Which areas do you most want to actively advise on in 2026? I'm seeing sideways nods from people. Well, then why don't we take a moment now? And Stefan, I suppose this is in keeping with your comment that we heard from your group, just to be able to focus on one. But what's would one or two of you share of the three things that we heard about our people, our services, our partners? Which one of those w would you most prefer to be able to advise on in 2026? And this is open to staff persons or others. Just this is why breakout rooms are better, see, because it's a smaller group. People are more apt to share. Go ahead, Patty.
Yep, trying to raise my hand and unmute myself. I tell you, it's
It's a
eight
lot of
o'clock at
things.
night. It's a lot of things for 8 o'clock at night. And maybe, I mean, one of the comments in our group was, yes, we hit the right three priorities. And maybe not so much advising, but really trying to understand in our recruitment component as to what, are we digging in deep enough to truly understand why we are still experiencing such a turnover? And how can we advise on that because it impacts loved ones so much.
Mhm. Thank you, Patty. Yeah, it's significant. I'll pause to see if there's one more. Yeah, Nancy.
So, honing in on the our people part of the strategic planning, something that really is important to me, and when it comes to our people, is the training. The training component, making sure that we have a proper orientation process for staff, something that's consistent, something that is well designed. And we have great pieces already built, but I am, as someone who's new to the onboarding process and new to leading new staff through the onboarding process, it's highlighted areas where there can be improvement. And a lot of feedback I get from staff is that they've been asked to do things that maybe they don't feel confident doing because they don't know that they've gotten clear direction on it, or because of leadership turnover. One leader wants it done one way and another leader wants it another way. And so there's inconsistencies which lead to staff not feeling capable to take charge and feel confident in the day-to-day, in some of the day-to-day things that they come across. So when I think about our people, I really think about the training and the orientation and the support that we're providing them.
Thanks, Nancy. We've heard across the organization that people who work for Caris want to have a similar experience no matter where they work. If somebody, you're out in Saskatchewan, right? And then I'm on my screen, Stefan is below you. He's the furthest away from you up in the Ottawa community. If somebody were to move from one community to the next, they want to know that they have a similar experience. And the folks that use our services, we've heard that as well, that they want to know that there's that consistent approach across, whether they live all the way up in Elliott Lake or Blind River, James, or down at the lake shore near the lake in Toronto. And so this idea of a consistent approach, a consistent expectation, a Caris way, if you would, of services and support. So we'll leave it at that. I don't want to twist arms to have more people offer, but I have one more poll question for you. Now, before we put the question up, I just want to let you know a thing. For this one, pardon me, for this poll question, we're gonna, I think Loanne is helping managing the polls. She'll be able to see what your response is. So just, I want you to know that, because we actually want to be able to follow up with a couple of you, based on your responses. Okay. Now, in it, one of you in the groups talked about our partners as a thing that you're excited about. But this poll, this question is, if advocacy or government relations opportunities arise, and so this is in the idea of thinking about our partners and our government partners, but if advocacy or government relation opportunities arise, how interested are you in participating? So, for example, attending a meeting with your local MLA or MPP or MP, as an example. But not limited to that, but just something in the world of government relations. So, Loanne, go ahead and put the question up, and we will leave it for a moment. And I'll add, so, for those of you that answer very interested or somewhat interested, we're going to note and probably reach back out to you, not because we have work for you to do in this moment, but because we just want to be able to make this connection and be able to know who we can call on. Right now, for example, the Minister of Finance is receiving public consultation opportunities from citizens as it relates to the next budget. And so we've had a couple of people attend. Some folks that use our services have participated with some of our EDs. I know Joy attended one last week, I think it was. Philippe attended one today or yesterday, just off the top of my mind that I recall.
And
So we're looking for
Deidre was with me at that one.
Deidre was with you, and
Yep.
Deidre's here tonight, right? So
Yep.
Deidre, thank you. So those kinds of things to be able to go, we would equip you. We wouldn't expect you to go in unequipped. And in some cases, based on conversations I've had with a couple of you, you might equip us as we go into those meetings. So I want to be able to learn together. Thank you so much for those of you that are very interested, especially. Yeah, we can close the poll. Thank you so much for that. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're quite excited to be able to step into it. And we know that we will be successful if we do it together. And so it's key for things like this, where we are learning, advising, thinking together, are helpful for us. It was key in developing the strategic priorities to this point, and it's going to be key in helping us focus our work in the year and years ahead. Thank you all for giving us an hour and 22 minutes by the time we say goodbye this evening. I appreciate each and every one of you and the time that you give tonight and your commitment to our community advisory networks throughout the year. Your local executive directors or their lead will be in touch with you about your next local meeting. And in the meantime, Sal and I will work with some notes from this meeting with the links and put it together and send out likely a link to the recording as well, so that you can reference it back and have it for your benefit. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening. A longer evening for our friends in Saskatchewan, a bit of a shorter evening for those of us here in Ontario. So bye-bye all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.